Tell us why you think we should have an Asian American on the Supreme Court.
Well, thanks so much for having me. I think, first of all, I think Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders would support whomever the president would nominate. We recognize that this is his constitutional responsibility that he plans to fulfill and hope that the Senate gives the nominee due consideration. But with respect to an Asian American or Pacific Islander on the court, we're excited because we think it's time. I think we think it's time in part because there are a lot of fantastic candidates out there whom the president can choose from, including many who he nominated himself to the lower courts. But also, as you look at the changing demographics of our country, you look at the fact that there are currently only two people of color on the Supreme Court, now is really the time to help diversify the court. And that's a principle that the president's been committed to since the very beginning.
Why does it make a difference to have a diversity of views in the Supreme Court that stem from everything from cultural background to the school that you went to everything like that?
That's a great question because, after all, the law is the law. The Constitution and the precedent are all there. But on the other hand, diversity is incredibly important to have better confidence in the justice system. For example, all three of the candidates that I just mentioned, all are immigrants. And we haven't had an immigrant appointed to the Supreme Court since 1939. Obviously, our country's a lot different since then, and the experiences they bring are a lot different from then. I think when I think about diversity and the impact that a candidate might bring, I think about the story that Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg told about a case that the Supreme Court heard, I think, in 2009. There was a 13-year-old girl who was strip-searched by school officials looking for drugs. And the sense among other justices on the court was that maybe there wasn't lasting humiliation. What is the long-term impact on this young girl? And Justice Ginsburg, as the only female justice at the time, said, well, you may not have the experience of being a 13-year-old girl, but let me tell you what the long-term impact is. And I think that there's that sort of real-world experience that people have, that they bring to courts, that they understand different life experiences, that's incredibly important as we think about how the courts are going to shape and affect our lives.
Mr. Kang, real quickly, can you tell me how optimistic are you as you look ahead that we will see an Asian American nominee for the Supreme Court?
Long term, I'm incredibly optimistic. I think this time around, look, I don't think that an Asian Pacific American's ever even been interviewed sort of officially on the short list to be a Supreme Court justice. And the fact that as you look through all of these articles, you look at all of the potential candidates, there are a number of highly qualified Asian Pacific Americans out there. Even getting an interview with the president would be a big step forward. And I think there's a reasonable chance, in part because our community's ready. We're ready with the candidates, and we're ready in terms of being politically and demographically growing as the largest, fastest growing racial group in the nation. I think we're ready for representation on the court.
All right, then. Our guest, Christopher Kang, National Director of the National Council of Asian Pacific Americans. We appreciate you joining us. You can read Christopher's recent editorial at NBC Asian America.